I'm Ethan, I love muzzleloading. Today we're heading to the shop to build this buffalo powder horn kit I purchased from Powder Horns and More. And the best part is I have a second powder horn kit to give away thanks to 3 Rivers Archery. I just need your name and mailing address. You can sign up at ilovemuzzleloading.com or at the link in the pinned comment. Here's our kit as it comes. You can see it comes in a similar package as our giveaway horn here from 3 Rivers Archery. I picked up this one directly from Gary at Powder Horns and More at Gunmakers Fair at Kempton a couple years ago. So in the kit, we've got our bag of hardware. We've got a screw here to attach to our butt. We've got some nails to go around the butt if we'd like, and then we have just a classic fiddle peg there. I think we might customize that a little bit, so we may not use that. We've got a length of leather here for a strap, which I like personally. I like my horn being separate. And then here is our buffalo horn as it comes, that you can see and hear the surface of that is pretty rough. Something I like about the Powder Horns and More kits is that the plug comes fitted to the horn. I've done fitting myself, but in kind of how busy my life has been here lately, it's neat to pick up a kit like this that has it fitted. It looks here like we have a little bit of a crack, but I'm not too concerned about that. We'll kind of work with this and see, but I think we'll be fine. I think when beginning to tackle a project like this, it's important to have a plan in place. And to assist with that plan, what I'm going to do here is take a pretty rough tracing of this horn. Something that I know I want to do at the plug here is just have a nice, simple, rounded plug. Now I'm looking at the Gertie horn that's in Fort Malden in Ontario, and kind of using it as a little bit of reference here. We've got a collar on the original horn. And you don't have to be an artist to lay this out. But I think it's important to have something that you're going off of. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Now that we've got our plan, I think we can start moving forward with some of the shaping on this according to the directions. Now I'm going to be really careful about removing this rough outer area because I want to make sure I leave enough to do the collar that we're looking at doing. So we're going to get our kind of coarse file here. And this is more of a rasp, I guess. We're going to start working this. It can be difficult to grab these. Having a vise is really handy. This is where having the rocker jaw that I've made for the vise is really handy, to show you that for real quick here. So the jaws are flat on this vise, but I've made this rocker jaw out of a hard piece of cherry. I've glued a couple magnets in here on the back side so that it sticks to the jaws and doesn't fall out. This top plate on here indexes it so I can't mar whatever I'm working on. And then on the front face, I've just glued some thick leather hide here so I'm not damaging my parts. But that rotates like so and is really handy to grab just about anything you want to work on. I kind of like seeing some imperfections in there myself. But it's important to remember the history of horns and the horn industry along with that. We're going to keep working it here and see what we get. We're getting closer and closer here. I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at with the files. You can see here at the tip, we've taken down quite a bit of material here towards that pencil mark. Not a lot, but the reason I want to stop with our files now, and we might do a little bit of scraping, but one of the main things I want to do is make sure we have enough material for our collar. I'm keeping the plug as rough as I can for right now because it's one of the only means we have to easily grasp this in the vise.
What I've got here is just a normal cabinet scraper. Needs a little oil, as you can see, but it's got rolled edges all around, and we can use that to scrape finish this horn, just like we do with a muzzleloader stock. Just under 2 hours of progress so far. Not really pushing it, you know, I'm not on any deadlines here, but I'm happy with the work that we've gotten done, and I'm excited to be back in the shop working on some projects.
Now we're going to start forming the steps so that we can have the separation between our collar, body, and spout. I'm using narrowed masking tape here to mark off the collar and give me a fairly circular line around the horn. Now it's not going to be perfect because that horn is tapered, but it gives me a good enough idea of where that should be and how it should work. To initiate this line, to start the step, I'm just using a hacksaw. Now this has a pretty wide kerf or width of the cut there, so I'm trying to knock that a little bit to the forward end so they're not cutting into the thickness of my collar. And from there I'm using a knife file, which is a tapered semi-triangular file, you could say, to deepen that line so that I get a nice groove to work in before I switch tools here. I'm taking that knife file and going all the way around to establish that line. From there we can switch to a flat file, and this file has a safe edge so I'm not cutting into my collar area there, meaning that there's no teeth on the side against the tape. But I start using that flat file to bring that step down, matching the height of the spout end to the depth of the groove we cut with the knife file. Once that's established, I can switch up to a big flat mill file here. This really helps me hog material away quickly and even up these surfaces. Like I've talked about before, it's important not to work on just one specific area. So once I get that collar established, I begin working and tapering that entire spout in unison, like you can see here. We don't want to have a divot going into that line for the collar, and then we can switch up to our cabinet scrapers here and start establishing those flats.
Part of the difficulty in holding this in the stage that it's in, right now I've filed quite a bit of the spout. I'm able to get some facets here with our scraper. I don't know if that's the route I should be going down. Part of me wonders if I should be doing this with a finer flat file here. And then maybe use the scraper to clean them up. If that's the case, I should be able to use my pretty large flat. Okay, so maybe that's what I want to do, is kind of set that with that file. Not quite to that marked line that Gary puts in there, so maybe I need to work in that direction more. Come back in with the scraper, kind of look at that flat. Now we just got to go around the rest of it. I've zoomed out here a little bit as I start to work on this next face, so you can see kind of how I'm holding it. Again, I'm not a professional, and this is kind of what I'm playing with. So I've got my vise over here, I've got my support over here, and I have an upright on the end of that support, serving as a little bit of a base for us so that we can clamp the butt plug end here, or the base plug, and I have some support out here at the tip.
If you like this kind of work and are interested in doing it yourself or shopping from other folks who make this kind of stuff, I really encourage you to check out the Kalamazoo Living History Show coming up March 21st and 22nd of 2026 in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's an indoor living history show that my wife and I run. Historically, we have over 200 vendors and over 10,000 people in attendance through the weekend. You can pick up some amazing supplies for any muzzleloading project, any living history project, but you can also go there to learn and talk to some of the foremost experts in the community to get you started off right, and maybe even find a teacher or mentor for the craft you're interested in. You can learn more at kalamazooshhow.com.
Some of these are more defined than others, and I'm just putting a little spit on there so I can see it. So like right in here, we've got a facet where we don't want one. That inside curve is tough. I'm looking with my eyes and with my fingers here. Got a little bit here on this outside curve. This center facet across the back, kind of the spine area, we have a little bit more we can go down. And I think that'll help clean up that face. Going around now, and probably should have done it sooner, trying to touch up these vertical faces. As they go back to that stop. Try to go up there on end. We've got the spout pretty well shaped, I think, for what I'm going for. It's not going to be perfect, but I want to move on here and start establishing our band so that we can finish up and get this cleaned up. Again, I'm saving the plug for kind of the end so that I can use this to hold on to the horn. So to establish the other side of this band, I'm going to use a little pair of dividers here. And I've kind of set them at a width here, and we could pull up our drawing even if we wanted to, because I've adjusted the proportions a bit. I'm going the wrong way. Let's kind of use our drawing as a baseboard here. And I'm going to tighten it up just a scooch. Set our drawing back there. And then we'll just kind of see how this goes. That gives us a little bit of a guide to work on. Looks like I've got a little bit of a hump right there. And then we can start laying in that second band. Now we tried a couple different methods last time. We're just going to start with this knife file or screw slot, screw head file. Now I'm to the point where I can see either side of my line, kind of the bright white there in the camera. So this area we haven't worked where our line is, and this area we have. And it's very subtle at this time, but you can see that difference, especially here where this face is kind of coming out at an angle. I spent a little time off camera scraping and cleaning things up. Not a whole lot of nuance here. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a little thin here on the inside, and so I'm stopping. That color shift that you can see right there, I'm a little nervous about. I think it's a good time to patch the crack that came with the horn here. We don't need a whole lot here. Like that. We're back now and our epoxy's dry. You can see we have a little excess there. I'm not too worried about. Just like with the rest of the horn, I'm using this cabinet scraper to work that epoxy. And you can kind of go either way, from the base or to the base.
Unfortunately, I'm fighting some technical issues with my equipment during this project, and I've lost the footage for shaping the collar on this horn. Since we're going to be covering it with rawhide anyway, it's not a huge deal, but for those of you looking to figure out how I did it, the process is super similar to the process we've done on the wedding bands we've done on some of our kit ramrod pipes. It's a very similar principle, and again, I'm sorry for the technical issues. I think we have it figured out for future projects.
I'm to the point now where I want to start preparing for our faux rawhide patch on here to give this some character. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've come up with a method I'm going to try here for us to get a good idea of how much rawhide we need so we have limited waste, while also seeing if this is going to work. So to make our template or our pattern here, I'm going to try to use some painter's tape to establish this. I think it's time to see if we can split this and if it gives us an idea of what to go on here. So I'm going to try to follow the spine of the horn here. There's a look at a bit of what we need, I think. My theory is that we punch a small hole. Get this oriented right. You can see why I have difficulty with shapes. I think kind of in this area here to kind of index us. So this strap would pull through here. In preparation for the stitching that we'll have to do, I have some artificial sinew here, and then I have two rather sharp needles here to use with that for us to, I think, punch through the rawhide as it's warm and malleable. To make it warm and malleable, I've got a stainless bowl. Don't tell my wife I borrowed this. I have some hot water here from an electric kettle. I filled the kettle up to its max. It's 1.5 liters, whatever that is in American. Had to help with the kids for a couple minutes here, but I'm back and our hide is nice and pliable. Feels pretty tough still, so we're going to give this a shot. I'm going to drape that around. Started sewing and immediately stuck the needle in the end of my finger. So our rawhide had some movie accurate stains on it here. I know I've got some extra material here. I'm just kind of binding that up. So I'm coming across here for this stitch, and your mind might tell you to put it here. I'm trying to go back as far as I can in this direction and as far out to the left as I can so that I'm drawing that hide up in to itself. A little clogged, I feel like. As this dries and presumably tightens up, I don't know what that's going to mean for us. There's a look at it there from the side. That's kind of where we're at. Got nice and tight here along our facets, which I'm really happy about. It's really an area I wanted that to be tight on. So I think at this point we'll let her ride and see. Here's a look at our horn after we've let this dry for about 72 hours, I think. You can see here it's shrunk really well, in my opinion. around the different surfaces that we have. We're going to move forward now. At this point, I think it's time for us to start working on the base as well as our stopper plug. What I'm thinking on the plug here is a simple kind of domed plug. I mean, it might be a little high for me. Because of our time limitations, you could do this with a file and a rasp, but I'm going to take this to our drum sander so I can knock this out pretty quick. At least get it close and roughed in, and then we'll refine it with our hand tools. There's a look at our shaped plug. I'm liking it. I think that's pretty nice. We're getting ready to start setting our pins in our plug. Not that we need them because this has been epoxied in there, but something I want to do along this crack here that came with the kit is put in kind of a faux staple. Probably just one, but maybe two, because I don't know how deep that plug goes. I have an undersized drill bit to the wire that we're going to use, so it should friction fit right in there. Yes, we are. We'll see. No, 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 don't do that. That's okay. You're not hurting anything. There's our staple in there. What do you think of that, sweetheart? Does that look good?
Let's put some of this on here.
Put some more on there?
Yeah.
Now we want to lay out locations for our pins. Can I see that? Thank you. And it's nice, I think, to try to kind of lay these out a little evenly. I don't really know how many we need to have. 6 is probably plenty for us. The kit comes with a series of brass nails like this that we could use. I also have, okay, they're sharp. You know? I also have these little copper nails or tacks as well. And I've used these on quite a few things. And maybe that's the look that we're going for. Let's see how it looks. Doing a little test fit here. I think that drill size should work fine. It's good to pre-drill these. We don't want to split anything at this point. And something that's would be smart to do that we have not is we can take our dividers and get ourselves a bit of an index here so that all of the holes for the pins are equidistant from the edge. And you don't have to go all the way around the horn like the way we've got things laid out here. We could just rotate this to each of our lines like so and then drill with that measurement in mind. Something that's important to do when you're driving these, especially in kind of an undersized hole, is I'm making sure that I'm not hitting on the back of the horn. Making sure I'm hitting on the back or the other side of the plug. That just gives those a different look. I don't know, what do you think? Do you like that look, Caroline? That copper nail in there? We've got 6 of those in there. While that paint dries a little bit, something we can do to tone back the copper is hit it with a little brass black. So I've been thinking for a while now about how to put an attachment point in the base plug of this horn. But something about this makes me just like, man, it'd be kind of neat if this was like kinked over. And I just can't get that out of my head. That's like kind of what I'm thinking, but not quite. Now we're doing all this cold, which probably isn't smart. I mean, it's ugly, but I'm kind of seeing this as like, you know, stuck in a fort. Your staple or something has fallen out, so we'd put maybe a faux staple hole in there, and you found a nail and cobbed something up. I mean, we can always put it in, see if it works or not. We may want a slightly bigger hole. Through rotten luck, somehow again, I've managed to cut my finger and the camera wasn't running. I'm really sorry about that. In short, I found the right size drill bit to be undersized for our marred up nail. And I drilled partially into the plug and then seated the nail as far as it would go. I did it on purpose, but I am surprised how tough that is and how stiff that is in there. Secondary to go along with this folded up nail, my thinking was that this might be a repair or a patch done after the original staple may have fallen out. So to pass that along a little bit more, we drilled a partial hole here in the plug, and I chipped at it a little bit with a knife to make it look a little worn out. We're going to add a couple more coats of paint here just to get this plug weathered up a little bit so that we can tone it back some.
For my spout plug, I carved it out of walnut to match the base plug for this horn. This was done in the house while the kids were napping, so I didn't have a chance to film it. That being said, it's a simple process. I carved the plug until it fit in the horn the way I wanted to, and then I worked on the ornamentation on the end.
So I'm layering some red and black acrylic to get some color that I'm looking for, kind of a maroon. Oh, okay. While some of our paint dries here, I've chucked this up in our vise, and I think it'd be neat to add my initials to the plug here, like we see in some horns. I've got a V-tool or a veiner or a V-chisel here and a mallet, and I'm just going to gently careful, hon. Hey. You want some more paint?
Yeah.
Well, you're in luck, because it's time for us to add some paint. So now, before we add more paint, I'm adding some black to our carved lines.
Hey, let me see.
I've layered a few more coats of paint here on our plug. I've dinged it up a little bit just to give it a little texture. I've got a coat of paint on that. I'm going to let that dry. And while we're doing that, we're going to turn our attention up here to our plug. I've got a pretty nice fit there. It's not super tight, but it's not loose either. We'll give this a little bit of oil here when we're done. But the next thing we want to do is, I like to make it so that it's hard to lose this. So we're going to drill a hole here in our plug. I'm placing our hole in the center here. I'm going to cut a length of wire.
My framing isn't the best here, but I'm forming up a simple captured wire loop.
Okay, not super pretty, but it gets us where we need to be.
Now we're forming some simple looped chain links from that same wire. You can make as many of these as you'd like. It's just about what chain length you want.
To get some oil soaking into our plug, I've got our oil cup here, and I use just this Danish oil. Now we're ready to start thinking about a strap. In the kit you get this piece of strap material. It's some kind of commercial tanned product. The finish on the smooth side is super smooth. I'm not saying it's a bad strap by any means, but I think it's the kind of thing I might replace down the road with something that's been woven, perhaps. That's a very common finish we see in the period. So I'm kind of thinking we bring this around and feed this through our staple. Punch 2 holes through there. We can bring up here, snip together. I've got some waxed linen thread here.
And with that, we've got a completed powder horn. Did a lot of new things that I've not tried before with this kit, but I'm pleased with the finish that we got. I'm excited to age it in naturally as I start carrying this in the woods. But first I've got to build the flintlock that goes with it. This is the third horn I've ever put together, but I get that itch now and then, and I really enjoyed getting back into horn work here. It's a way to scratch that itch to make something that's a little bit different than some of the kits and some of the other projects we've been working on. I really encourage you to try it out if you've not before. It can be intimidating, but there's some great resources out there like the Honorable Company of Horners at hornguild.org, as well as some great books and teachers out there that you can get a hold of to learn more. Overall, I think the Powder Horns and More powder horn kits are nice kits. A lot of the hard work is done for you. So if you're intimidated by the fitting of a base plug, I think it'd be a really good option for you. I will say, initially I was pretty bummed that we had a crack in our horn from presumably the fitting of the plug to it. That's something that we could have avoided had we fit that ourselves, but with a little epoxy and our staple in there, I'm not too concerned about that. Now all we have to do is build the fowling piece that'll go with this horn. Should be easy, right? Special thanks again to Three Rivers Archery for sending me this kit to give away. Check out the link in the pinned comment or at ilovemuzzleloading.com for your chance to win. No purchase necessary, no spam, no gumming like that. Just want to get this in somebody's hands that wants to put it together. Once again, I'm Ethan, I love muzzleloading. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.
I love Martin. Oh dear.